It's been 20 years since the beginning of Halo, a series that would change the way we look at console shooters forever, and still being able to play them all to this day makes it even easier to revisit our favorites. A lot has evolved over the past 2 decades for the franchise, and with Halo Infinite right around the corner, we thought it would be a great time to take a look at the evolution of some of our favorite Halo weapons, starting with the Magnum. Leave a like, subscribe, and let's get to it. In my opinion, while the Magnum in Combat Evolved is the greatest one on the list today, it's almost so good that it left shoes simply too big to fill, so we'll consider it in a league of its own. The CE Magnum is an absolute powerhouse. It takes only 3 shots to kill from just about any range, and being able to scope in makes it that much easier to mow down your enemies. In theory, with a clip size of 12, you could wipe a whole squad without even having to reload if the stars aligned. This was also long before bloom was something the devs had to consider for pistols, making it even more dangerous. As if all of that wasn't good enough, it can be easy to forget that we also start with all of the ammo we could possibly need, with 60 bullets on hand every single time you spawn. Needless to say, this Magnum is one of the best guns in the series and can make talking about the next ones a little bit painful. Halo 2 is my personal favorite Halo, and the one I sank the most hours into, but I don't think much of that time was spent using pistols, and it's pretty obvious why. With the addition of dual-wielding, the power of the Magnum was drastically reduced. The fire rate for the pistol is faster than what it was in CE, but it takes a massive number of 13 shots to get the kill. If that sounds like a lot, well, it is, because the clip size is still only 12 bullets, and you only spawn with 36 bullets in the pocket this time around. Dual wielding with an energy weapon makes the pistol much more viable, but in the bigger picture of Halo 2, we were often opting for a shiny new battle rifle instead. As things like the double shot became second nature for some players, the pistol served its purpose by simply being the secondary weapon to allow a flurry of non-stop BR bullets and preventing your gun from jamming. To add insult to injury, the scope was also removed from the Magnum, making it even more difficult to use in a pinch. Halo 3's Magnum got a few buffs in comparison to Halo 2, although the bar was admittedly very low. It now takes 5 shots to kill, but the fire rate is slower than the Halo 2 Magnum, and the clip size is reduced to 8. This makes the Magnum better in finishing off weak opponents if you could overcome the slow weapon swapping, but still not the type of weapon you would use as a primary, especially since our spawning ammo capacity is once again reduced, this time being 32 rounds. Although this version of the Magnum is a major improvement from 2, there is still no ability to scope, which is likely a byproduct of dual wielding, as Halo 2 and 3 were the only games to allow dual wielding with Magnums, and also the only 2 to remove the scopes from the gun. However, the accuracy of the Magnum without a scope at a distance is still surprisingly consistent. Ultimately, the Magnum in PvP was still in a place where it was being passed up in favor of the more popular and practical rifles. When it comes to Halo Reach, it might be one of my least favorite of the series in PvP because I personally wasn't prepared for all of the new abilities. But with that aside, this version of the Magnum marked the road to recovery. It's the first Magnum since Combat Evolved to bring back the scope, and also the first one in the series to add bloom. The fire rate has been bumped up, and we're returning with a 5-shot kill in an 8-round clip, just like Halo 3. However, this time we're starting with an abysmal 24 shots of Magnum ammo, adding quite a sense of urgency to scavenging. Scopeless Magnums from Halo 2 and 3 were already a thing of the past at this point, but the accuracy of the Reach version of the gun was much less consistent at a distance, even with the scope. Taking into consideration that Halo Reach also had a lot of new elements for players to adapt to, such as better long-range marksman rifles, armor lock, and other abilities, it's easy to overlook the Magnum and its improvements. However, this Magnum can go toe-to-toe with the other rifles in the game, and at least you still feel capable of putting down team shots from long range, instead of watching helplessly from a distance and hoping your Hail Mary grenade doesn't friendly fire. Halo 4's Magnum is almost a pleasant surprise. It takes 6 quick shots to kill, and the fire rate has remained somewhat consistent with its previous version in Reach. Halo 4's Magnum is definitely viable, but I often find myself running out of ammo right in the middle of a fight. The clip size is the same as Halo 3 and Reach with 8 shots at your disposal, but we're once again spawning with 24 rounds in total, which makes it absolutely crucial to scavenge ammo from your enemies. But that's uniquely difficult in Halo 4 since players can choose their own loadout. This means there isn't as much of a guarantee to run into Magnum ammo when you get a kill. Ultimately, another big downfall for the Magnum in Halo 4 was the removal of the descope mechanic, making it even more difficult to take on other rifles, especially at a range. Halo 5 is one of my favorite games in the series, and the Magnum made a big return as a viable primary weapon and a deadly threat. It takes 5 shots to kill, and this time around we're blessed with a 12-round clip. Our starting ammo capacity is up to 36, but with its viability, finding ammo off of your enemies is much more common. The scope and bloom return, but the bloom doesn't impact the Magnum's accuracy at a range nearly as much as it did in Halo Reach. The descope making a return also makes a big difference in taking on fights against other rifles and adds even more practicality to the gun. With the additional core movement options such as the thrust, you can now outmaneuver your opponents in different ways that make the Magnum even more satisfactory when you get those clean reversals. We're tossing the Halo Infinite Magnum on this list after getting our hands on the technical preview, but it's worth noting that the build we played on was a few months old and not exactly what we'll be seeing at launch. However, the Magnum in Infinite so far is looking like a formidable weapon. The fire rate feels close to that of the Halo 2 Magnum and takes 7 quick shots to kill. That sounds like a lot considering it's the second most bullets needed behind Halo 2, but there's something about the fire rate and the snappy reload time that makes it feel lightning fast. It currently sits with a 12-round clip size and a starting ammo capacity of 48, which is the second most since CE. The bloom on Infinite's gun is actually what makes the biggest difference. Up close, a rapid-fire 7-shot perfect kill feels nearly impossible to miss, so the bloom doesn't get in the way too much. But apply that same strategy at a range and you're shooting blanks. There will be a bit of mastery with this iteration, but definitely one of the strongest versions so far, even up against other rifles, as the scope returns and the descope mechanic is in full effect. We've seen the Magnum in so many ways, shapes, and forms, but which Magnum in the series is your favorite? Let us know in the comments, and if you enjoyed this video, then be sure you subscribe for more. We'll be covering all things Halo here on GameSpot, so stay with us to stay up to date. Thanks for watching, and we'll see you next time. Peace!